To the Dr. Pat Show. Talk radio to thrive by. Powerful, inspiring, and coming to you live, bringing you stories of people like you and me busting through and living life full out. Get ready to dare to wonder what your life would be like if you knew you could not fail. Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome. It's so great to have all of you tune us in and turn us on. And I want to say this. I'm going to get right at introducing you to Mary Rose Campbell. And the reason I want to do that is because we are on the verge of talking about one of the most important energies for women of our time. And when we talk about this, it's about breakthrough to possibilities. And what does that mean? Well, it means words, but it also takes form. Today, you're going to get a taste of the online international conference for women on one of my favorite words for us, resilience. Today, we're going to take a walk with Mary Rose about what does this mean and how is it that someone like she creates a conference to highlight one of the most important issues of our time. Now, why do we say that? In the face of COVID, we never thought we would be talking about that level of resilience, that level of, let's just say, get it doneness, than now and what we're faced with. So whether it's a passion for helping people to become the best they could be, past accomplishments, her life, her work, looking at disempowered individuals, right? Including people that are, let's say, physically challenged, like the blind, the elderly, the incarcerated, we have that in common, and those with mental illness, we have that in common as well, and addictions. But it doesn't matter what the age is, both men and women alike, including the LGBTQ populations. For me, one of the populations, the high suicide rate that no one is really talking about. But here we are. She is. So, what is it that kept her moving forward to create this platform, this beautiful way to really pinpoint that whatever you think you are, whatever you think you have as women, it is much more than that. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you here, Mary Rose.
Thank you so much for the invitation, and I am delighted. I'm a little overwhelmed with your introduction of me. Thank you.
And it probably for me, I could have gone on. I mean, you have made a conscious decision to step forward in life, this life, maybe past lives, but this life in particular, and look around you and say, there is a gap. I need to fill it. There is a gap. We need this kind of support. I want to ask you about how you became you. And there's always a story behind that. Otherwise, you would not have created this women's conference. There's something in you. I want to know what that is. So does our audience.
Well, I'm not going to go back to the beginning of all of it, but I think this segment essentially of my life started with the last recession. When it was brutal for me. I had a nonprofit organization that focused on incarcerated populations of men, women, and children. We made some incredible breakthroughs in Georgia and Florida, and with the last recession, all of that went down the hill and out the door, as well as my own personal finances as well. So I was like kind of held with all this, like, okay, what do I do now? And my younger son invited me to go hiking in Scotland with him. And so he's like, hey, Mom, don't you want to go hiking in Scotland? I'm like, no. My feet hurt. I stopped dancing, which I love to do, because my feet hurt. I didn't know why my feet hurt because I didn't have health insurance. So there were just, I was like, how do I do this? And I had participated in a lot of numerous different genres of transformational sort of work. That essentially was feel the fear and do it anyway. There was just all this context. And how I describe my son is that he took the scenic route through adolescence. And for him to be a young man in his 20s asking his mother to go hiking in Scotland with him, like, who am I to say no? So I tell you, I was totally confronted. I was sitting on my sofa and I was thinking, how can I do this? How can I do this? And so I finally, after 2 weeks of keeping my butt on the sofa, I finally got up and put on my tennis shoes and walked out around the block, and I thought I would die. And I thought, okay, I got to do this. And so there was just, like energy. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. It took me, I got up to 3 miles. We were going to do 57 miles in Scotland over 5 days. That was, hike from bed and breakfast to bed and breakfast. And it took something for me to do that. And there were stories along, there were, we can't go because of this, and you can't go because of this. And, I didn't have any credit. I didn't have any money. I, started working with a company. I was trying, I was that was working with the severely mentally challenged people who are mental illness, people with mental illness in Atlanta. And it was like, okay, how can I create this? And then, so my getting out of that, letting my community know, and there being a stand. Somebody told me about this woman who was a hiking coach. She was just creating her business about being a hiking coach. It's like, oh my God. So I called her, and she's one of my speakers. It was amazing. And I told her, I don't want to sleep on the ground. We created hiking weekends, hiking days here and there, day trips, staying in little cabins or places all over Georgia and Virginia and on the Appalachian Trail. And she was just an absolute stand for me to have breakthroughs in whatever area of life I wanted to. And so she's been an incredible friend since then. She has her own life coaching business, and she's hiked the Appalachian Trail several times, and her name is Regina Ryder. So breaking through that really provided me with an opportunity. And coming through that, I also wrote a book that's it'll be republished soon. It should be on Kindle Vision, on Kindle within the next few days. And it is called This Lessons for an Extraordinary Life. So in the book, I actually talk about the things that I confronted and how I broke through those, and the things I confronted. But it's not about me, guys. It's like, I am no different than any other woman. Every single woman has broken through barriers. And sometimes we forget. We forget that wellspring of inspiration and ability. And we hear other people saying, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. Or why do you think you can do that? Or no, you're not smart enough. You're not fit enough. You're not whatever. And what there is for us to do is just to get out there and do it. And so my intention is, with this conference, is to focus on the life coaching that some of them offer, the extraordinary way these women have recreated themselves, regardless of what their circumstances were. And there's some interesting circumstances among the 5 women that will be speaking.
Yeah. You know what? I got to tell you this. You get some enormous calluses from working up to everybody's can'ts. Like when you spend your time to work up to everybody else's, you can't do this, you can't do that, you'll never be this, you shouldn't do this. You will get calluses on parts of your body you don't even know you have. And as women, we get enough calluses. We get enough because we're building up a level of resilience that we don't talk about enough. And, sometimes, what happens is, because we don't talk from that place of heart to share our stories, people don't understand that this isn't just not you and it's not me. Everybody listening has got that resilience momentum inside of them. Talk about what your vision is through this conference for igniting that in women worldwide.
Well, all that we've gone through, and all that we've gone through the past year, some of it has been election, regardless of which side of the fence that you're on with that. Yep. It's been COVID. It's been women who have been single. And I want to acknowledge there are men out there who have have the responsibility of it all too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but frequently women are the ones that are, but of course they're going to end up taking it over, because that's essentially historically what we've done. In the African American community, of course, there was the women that's, the men frequently were sold off to other landowners so that they could not be a part. So there's a major a responsibility that they've had, that they've taken on. So what I want this time is, I want every woman who watches this conference, I want every one of them to be able to look and see, oh wow, I could do that. Oh wow, she's showing up just like I'm doing, or she had some concerns like I have. And wow, I want people to not look at me and say, well, Mary Campbell, Mary Rose Campbell could do that. I couldn't do that, but Mary, and people have told me that in the past. I want people to see that they are themselves, and they have the deep wellspring of abilities to break through whatever they want to break through in.
And this is exactly for me what motivated me to step out into the world in a way that I didn't plan. I mean, I dialed a wrong phone number 16 years ago. That's why we're talking. And the network got started in the same way 10 years ago, going on 11. But that's not what's inside of us. See, that thing inside of us is the thing that allows us to dial a wrong phone number, a misdialed phone number, let's call it, and not hang up because we know that there's a there there. Isn't that sort of the sense of the women that are coming forward? And part of the message of the conference is to remind us that there is a there there, that, you're managing kids and COVID and everything else and what you're experiencing now. And I got to tell you, that 2008, 9, that deal right there, that was a showstopper.
It was brutal.
That was a showstopper. That was brutal. That was brutal. And we learned from it. We learned from it.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, right? First of all, let's stop for a moment and let's make sure people know how to become part of the conference. Give people information about what they need to know, how to follow you on social media, website, anything you'd like to share with folks today.
Okay, let me see if I have this.
Well, I could tell. I got it here in front of me.
Okay,
so,
well, why don't you tell them, because I don't have it exactly right here.
So for those of you, if you're on Facebook, you want to be looking up Resilient Women's Conference. If you put that in, the page will come up and you will take a look and you'll see what this is about. It's an international conference on resilience for women. And we're going to talk about, right here in a minute, we're going to talk about the people that are stepping up, to participate in the conference. So that's the first thing you should know. The second thing is you can go to the website resilientwomens.com. And when you get there, you're going to be able to see the guest speakers. You're going to be able to go over and look at how to register for this, how to follow the events on social media. It's all there. And it talks about what this is about. It talks about the purpose, the passion, what coming together is about. And it really talks about that in normal times, the burdens of work and family and stress to women, they're there. But in 2020, all you need to do is do an exponential algorithm to say whatever that was, put it on there. I agree with you. There are men I know, one of them happens to be my producer. There are men that know what it's like to raise children, to make sure you have a job, to be there when you need to be there, and to be the best you could be. It's a resilience, right? That somehow you learn over time. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important that we do honor that. But right now, we have something going on that we need to acknowledge. And that is, how can people learn from the speakers? Let's talk about the speakers if we could.
Okay, so I've spoken a bit about Regina. I've known Regina for a number of years, and she's been an extraordinary asset to my life. She offers hikes with forgiveness walks using radical forgiveness as the background for that. So it's not only hiking, it's also working on what is it you're holding on to? What is it that's preventing you from really breaking through what you want? Jahad Zanabu is just amazing. I met her when she was in Atlanta a number of years ago, and she's fun and spontaneous. She lives in LA now. She writes like in your friggin' face poetry.
Yep.
And she's also an artist, and she is dynamite. I just can't wait for you to hear her. My friend Wendy Lippert. I know all of these women personally. Wendy Lippert was one of the women that I enrolled in leading programs in the prisons, and she did a marvelous job with men and women in Georgia and Florida. She's just an absolute stand that people get past their circumstances and create a fabulous life. Dr. Linda Chen, I don't know her haven't known her as long, but I had a conversation with her last night. She has an interesting story of addictions and breakthrough, and she creates dynamite support for ministers and for chaplains and for people all around. She was really excited to work. She told me that she was really excited to be able to present here because she has friends and relatives that don't do the church thing necessarily. And this is an opportunity. I told her, I said, now look, we're not doing a church thing here. And she said, okay, I got it. So you'll even if you know Linda and you know where she's coming from and you've heard her before, what you will hear this time will be different. And the last gal that I've got is Molly Welch. And I met Molly on a group, and I'll give a plug for this, the Daily Huddle. Started from two guys in the Atlanta area, meets Monday through Friday for half an hour at 9 o'clock Eastern time. And Molly was on this program, and she kind of talked a little funny, and she's a young woman, a very beautiful woman. I was like, what is the story with Molly? And I found out she was on her way back to Auburn University from the Atlanta area and was texting while driving and was involved in a horrendous automobile accident. She has had to learn to talk again. She has had to learn to walk again. I mean, what this and she has created her own nonprofit. She speaks to schools and groups about paying attention when you're driving, but also she's amazing to be able to create her life entirely newly than what she thought it was going to be a few years ago. So, and our MC for the night, for the afternoon, is going to be Cheryl Girl. Cheryl Patterson is amazing. She's from the Charlotte area and has been had her own show on radio in the past. So I think we've got a dynamic lineup. I think folks will really enjoy this. It'll be fun. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll be amazed. You will be inspired. You will think, oh my God, what could I take on next? That's my intention. Yeah.
What I love about this is, this is for me what I do every day, but everybody has a resilience story. Everybody has, been and rode the wave of resilience building, and they come from some of the most horrific life events, right? But part of it, and the women that you just, introduced, is we go through an event and we're almost like the Viktor Frankl of our time.
Yeah.
We go through the events and now we have a new perspective to talk about them in a way that could help others. I mean, I joke about the first 19 years of my life. I joke about it now a little bit, and people are like, dude, your mom committed suicide when you were 6. What are you joking about? Well, I don't joke about my mom's suicide. I talk about where I was when that happened and what the circumstance was at age 6 years old in a Catholic boarding school. But there's a message that we can deliver to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about your vision for the message in this conference and what you hope women will be inspired to absorb and embrace.
My thought is women are coming forth. There's evidence of it, with Congress, with Kamala, coming in as the vice president-elect. And so I just want more women to really think, what could I do? What could I take on? I might be able to take on county commissioner. I might take on, just let me go to the school board meetings and find out what's going on. What do they do? And so, like maybe I want to step forward. Maybe I want to be on the school board. Maybe I have something to offer people. Maybe people would listen to me. And how would I do that? And so, yeah, it's like, oh my God, like I'm not a speaker. No, I can't be a speaker. But you get into your stand that what I want is a transformation of the prisons. I have to be able to talk to people. And then what you do is you put yourself in a course or whatever else that would have you break through whatever it is that you think you can't do in the area of public speaking. I mean, if something becomes important enough to you, you figure it out. You think,
Yeah.
and you will see things around you where other people have done that. I want my organization to be one of those. I want, and let's, my organization, the company that I have is Yippee LLC. Like yippee. This is about taking your life on, and that's who you are. Is wow, what could I do next? So, yeah.
That is so funny, because if you ask anybody here how I sign a lot of my emails, I have two words I use, Yippee or Yahoo. And I want to just make sure everybody knows the date. It is December 5th, 2020. And I want to make sure you go to the website, resilientwomensconference.com. And when you get there, there'll be a way for you to register. So it's December 5 at noon, right?
Noon
And I just
Eastern
want to
time.
make sure everybody knew. So it's noon, 4 p.m. That can't be right.
That's
yeah,
Eastern
no,
time.
it's noon to 4 p.m. Eastern time.
Eastern time,
So we
right.
got to be clear about that. Noon to 4 p.m. Eastern time, which is 9, right? 9 a.m. Pacific time, just to be clear. But when you go over there, you'll see how to register. When you register, there'll be information on the website for what steps to take next, information about the conference, all of the above. Also, if you go to social media, you'll be able to go to Facebook. If you go to facebook.com, resilient-women's-conference, there you are. I want to thank you for today. I mean, we've talked about quite a bit. And, this is a conference that I'm excited that you've created, because it's been a really long time. And I don't know if we went through a lull in sort of women's conferences, but there is now an energy to do a lot more of this. What's your vision for the future?
I see women leading us. And I don't want to diss white men. There are many that are fabulous and awesome, and there need to be more women involved in what's going on. And so I see more and more people stepping up. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know what my vision is. I just want every single person to be touched by something that inspires them. And I hope that this will be one of the things that does that.
I am sure it will be. And the reason I'm sure about it is because it's time. We are at a point where we're being given almost an ultimatum to be more than we ever thought we could be, to do more than we ever thought we could do, and to share the energy of possibilities in ways we hadn't even thought before. And Mary, that's what you're doing. And I want to honor you in the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
And I want to say to everybody out there, please, what's your website?
My website that I have up, I run just a few clients. I don't coach many, but my website is yippieelifecoach.com.
I love it.
Yippieelifecoach.com. And my book, this Lessons for an Extraordinary Life, will be available through Amazon. The Kindle version will be $10 soon.
When's that coming out?
It should, we were going to try to get it up last weekend, and it will be done within the next couple of days.
Oh, so like right around the corner. All
Yeah,
right.
right here.
Wow.
Yeah, revision,
Really
over
excited
last
about it.
time.
Thank you so much. We'll
Thank
be
you.
talking again. Everybody get out there and look at this. Please look at this conference on resilience. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back.
All right, all clear.
And you're listening to the Dr. Pat Show that's coming up right next.
Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. Talk radio to thrive by. Powerful, inspiring, and coming to you live, bringing you stories of people like you and me, busting through and living life full out. Get ready to dare to wonder what your life would be like if you knew you could not fail. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our good news segment. I am so thrilled to have Vice President of Laboratory Investigations for PETA joining me here today, Dr. Alka Chandna. If you're like me, you've seen way too many documentaries, but who's doing something about it? That's what Dr. Alka is joining us here today to talk about. Animal rights advocates push to end the use of monkeys in laboratory experiments. Doctor, it's great to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Oh, it's so wonderful to be with you, Dr. Pat. Thank you very much for having me.
You know, it's been such an honor to watch PETA and to watch the growth, the expansion, your ability to take on the tough fights. Give us an update. What is going on?
You know, when I tell people what I do, people who I meet, people would be shocked to learn that more than 100,000 monkeys who are imprisoned in U.S. laboratories every single year. I think it speaks well of the American people and people in general that we think that this must have ended, because we don't like to think that animals are deliberately imprisoned in laboratories, held in small cages, and then have all of these horrors visited upon them in the way of experimentation. So it speaks well of people. Unfortunately, it's not true yet. We're working to the day when there are no animals in laboratories. We're not there yet.
And I think one of the arguments, let's address this particular argument for the people that say, look, if I have to choose between a monkey and my life, you know what I'm going to choose, because everyone's under the impression that this research, these experiments that are happening turn out for the betterment of humankind. But let's talk about the reality of this and what people don't know.
Yes. Well, right now the American people are being taken for a ride.
Yeah.
They are really being lied to by the animal experimentation industry. This is an enterprise that rarely contributes to cures or effective treatments for human beings. Dr. Pat, there was a study that came out of Stanford University a few years ago, and it documented, through this laborious process of looking at studies, in these highly promising results that came out of animal experiments. And they found that 90% of animal experiments, more than 90% actually, fail to lead to treatments for humans. More than a 90% failure rate. And meanwhile, we also know, and this is now from the National Institutes of Health, that more than 95% of pharmaceutical drugs that test safe and effective in animals are found to either not work or are unsafe in human beings. So there's a 95% failure rate with pharmaceutical drugs. So it means that we're really throwing good money after bad when we invest in animal experiments. It's not helping human beings. It's only costing a lot of animal lives. And also, when you think about the fact that we're not getting the cures and treatments that we need, it's also costing human lives.
So, this is part of the conversation. That's why I call it a good news segment, because the good news is we're finally getting the truth out, right? But let's talk about what happens to monkeys, because I think that's the second part of the conversation. And that is, what is it that a monkey on any given day would go through?
Yeah, it's a tragedy, really. And people, can go to our website at PETA.org to see video footage. Now, this is footage that we have obtained through our undercover investigations. PETA will send our employees to laboratories or other places where animals are used and abused. And these people document what's going on in these facilities. Most recently, just earlier this fall, we released the findings of a 6-month undercover investigation that we carried out at the Wisconsin National Primate Research Center at University of Wisconsin-Madison. This is a facility where there are about 2,500 monkeys who are imprisoned. They're kept in barren, stainless steel cages. These are environments that can never come close to meeting the needs of these emotionally complex and highly social animals. Many of these monkeys were caged alone, just isolated in the cages, never being able to touch another monkey. And for them, it's just like what it would be for us. When you think about solitary confinement in prison systems, it's a similar thing. And indeed, these monkeys, when they are caged alone in isolation for years, and sometimes they're caged alone for decades, they begin going insane from that isolation and that lack of social connection. What we saw at Wisconsin National Primate Research Center is that monkeys were tearing out their own hair. And the primatologists tell us, Dr. Pat, that they do this because they don't have any control over anything else that happens in their lives. They don't control where they live. They don't control what the temperature is. They don't control whether or not they have companions. If they're used as breeders, as many of these monkeys are, if they're used to breed new monkeys, they don't control being able to keep their babies. The babies are taken away from them at around 6 months of age. They control nothing. And then if they're used in experimentation, they can't control, what happens in those invasive surgeries, what happens when these horrible procedures are carried out on them, whether they're being poisoned or burned, electroshocked, addicted to drugs. They can't control any of that. So what do? They pull out their hair, they bite at their own flesh. You see them in the cages circling madly, rocking back and forth. Precisely what you would expect to see in a psychiatric asylum. And it's heartbreaking.
This is an expose because I do believe that most of us thought that this was handled. And what do I mean by that? I think most of us believe that we stepped out, we passed legislation, we've done things. And so you've been stepping out, making some changes. You've been doing things. You've been looking at, well, wait a minute. But here's the thing. People, I don't think realize that they're actually paying for this. Is that still true?
It's absolutely true. And it's just mind-boggling that so much of our taxpayer money goes to this enterprise that is a failing enterprise. So just last year in 2019, the estimate, and it's a conservative estimate, is that between 17 and 18 billion dollars were spent on animal experimentation.
Wow.
This is money that's dispersed by the National Institutes of Health. So it's our taxpayer money that's going out to carry out experiments on animals where we've already established, by and large, they don't work. They are not advancing medical science. They're not resulting in the cures and treatments that we desperately need. But then, this is the good news program. And so I have to say, the good news is that there are better ways.
Yeah, this wouldn't be good news segment if you and I were talking about it and you all at Peter were not doing anything or not made progress. Because I think the progress that you've made, especially in this area, that to me is seriously important. And I think it was you guys that did the expose on veal. And that was like, had to be like a bunch of decades ago. But you see, those are the things that say to people like me, oh my God, I didn't know. And isn't this a didn't know moment?
Absolutely. And I think we've all been there. I mean, I remember when I was, in university, I was an undergraduate student, when I first saw videos that came out of PETA. So very much like you, I was, shaken up by what I saw. And, I sort of had always thought of myself as somebody who, really read the media, knew what was going on. I kind of prided myself, I was a cocky 18, 19 year old. And then I learned, cosmetics were being tested on animals at the time. And there were experiments, going on at universities, many of them curiosity-driven experiments, not really having anything to do with human health, but just, curiosity about how certain biological systems worked. And so it was a real wake-up call for me. And I think that's the way it is for everyone. And part of the reason, Dr. Pat, is because, these laboratories are not advertising that they do what they do. It's hidden away.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that we do these undercover investigations. We also hear from whistleblowers, people who work in these laboratories who are actually kind-hearted people, who thought that they were going to go and advance our understanding of medical science. And what they found instead was that animals were being abused, that they weren't given veterinary care adequately, that they were kept in horrific conditions. And they got tired of hearing the dogs yelping. They got tired of seeing the monkeys in such psychological anguish. And so they called PETA. So we have video footage, photos, and whistleblowers. Also, and I think this goes back to your point, one of the things that we do is we submit Freedom of Information Act FOIA requests or requests under state sunshine laws, where we ask for video footage. When we learn that somebody, an experimenter, has taken video footage of certain experiments, we request that. And I'll tell you, Dr. Pat, it's like pulling teeth. The institution will say, no, you can't have it, it's proprietary, and they make up all sorts of excuses that don't hold legal water. And so our attorneys get on the case and they pry that video footage out of the laboratory's fingers. And so, when you see the footage, you know why they didn't want it to be revealed. And this is what's going on. This is a very secretive industry. It's an industry that doesn't want the public to know what's going on because it is horrifying.
Yeah.
And because the public at large is kind-hearted and cares.
It reminds me of Gloria Rubin and her effort to clean up the Hudson and the folks to clean up the Hudson. And, it reminds me of, how we can watch on the outside and see things happening, but on the inside, we don't know that gallons of oil are being dropped into a river. This is the same thing. This is gallons of harm being impacted on these monkeys and babies, by the way, that absolutely have no rights under this arena. Doctor, thank you so much for today. Last question. Please let folks know how they can find out more, and what's your personal message? What do you want to leave us with today?
Sure. Well, what I want to leave your listeners with is a note of optimism.
Yeah.
That together we can make a difference. Back in 2015, Harvard University closed its National Primate Research Center. It had a massive laboratory with more than 1,000 monkeys, and it closed down that laboratory because they knew that the public was stirring up controversy because of the mistreatment of the monkeys there. Harvard did the right thing. And right now we're calling on the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, to do the right thing. Close down the laboratories. Enough is enough. There are better methods out there, human relevant methods, and we can use those instead. So let's shift our funding priorities, do something that not only helps human beings, but it means that our tax dollars aren't wasted. And we see a lot of animals who are saved in the process as well. So people can come over to PETA.org, PETA.org. That's our website. And you will see video footage. You'll also see something that we authored with our scientists called the Research Modernization Deal. It basically lays out a plan, a strategy, a roadmap for getting away from animal experiments, pointing out what the failures have been with animal experimentation in the different disease areas like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, heart disease, et cetera, and talks about what the alternatives are. We can do this, and we can look to the day where there are no animals being tormented and killed in laboratories.
And let's leave everybody with this note because it's factual, and this is why I do call this good news segments. Anytime we can bring people the truth, it is good news. And this is more than 90% of animal experiments fail to lead to treatments for humans. More than 90%. So I just want to say that. Then more than 95% of new pharmaceutical drugs that test safe and effective in animals fail in human clinical trials. There's got to be a better way. Thank you, Doctor, for everything you're doing. Thank you to PETA.
Thank you, Dr. Pat. What a pleasure to speak with you. Really appreciate it.
Yep. So all of you out there, this is some great information. I bet you're like me. You didn't think this was going on. But remember, go to PETA.org, check it out. And I bet something else. I bet your kids know about this. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back.
TransformationTalkRadio.com.
Alejandro Badia has said it better than most people. Healthcare reform, or healthcare. You all have heard me talk about some real life stories, things that people are going through right now. But what is it that we cannot get? What happens when both Democrats and Republicans fail, and anybody else, fail to address shattered U.S. healthcare system? What is it about that? Well, let's talk about a right hot off the press new book, Healthcare from the Trenches. And it's exciting to be talking to Dr. Alejandro Badia right now. Doctor, it's great to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you, Pat. Really a pleasure to be here.
Look, I have shared a story that goes back a bunch of years. Went from a corporate job, lost health care, ended up in Washington State, and right on the verge of having my health care yanked because of a pre-existing condition. Something changed, and all of a sudden there was this CARE Act, and my insurance company not only couldn't cancel me, but they had to reduce my rate. Now, what have I learned from that? I learned how vulnerable we are. Has that changed? Aren't we all still vulnerable?
The problem with the with the ACA and the acts is that yes, there's what you just outlined. What's the benefit? The problem is it hasn't lowered our overall cost of delivering healthcare, and it's just not sustainable. It's because we're not addressing the root problem. Fixing healthcare is not simply about making sure that folks are covered.
Right.
I think it's about changing how we deliver healthcare to make it much more cost effective, which then there'd be money left over to really take care of everybody. It's not rocket science.
It's mind-boggling to me, Doctor, because I'm right there with you. And why does it seem so obvious to some and so elusive to others? You know what I'm trying to say? And you have patient stories that really hit you right between the eyes about this, right?
Sure. Well, let me just say that currently the people who control healthcare, right, are not the people who actually deliver it, right? It's not the doctors and nurses and therapists at all, right? So we know that. And the people who currently control it are making a hell of a lot of money. So why would they want to change it dramatically? So the book talks about that. It says it's really got to come from us. So what the question is, when are people going to be concerned that healthcare is chewing up 20%? One out of every $5 goes to healthcare delivery in the U.S., whereas number two in the world, Norway, is at about 10.3% of their GDP. So why are we twice as expensive? And it's because there's a lot of waste and there's a lot of bureaucracy in the system that isn't going towards actual healthcare delivery.
But isn't there also, I'm going to step out for a minute and just take a risk here. Isn't it also because we're not just duplicating at multiple levels? And let me just tell you what I mean. You know, there's the federal level, then there's the state level, then there's the city level. And let me just tell you, in where I live, there's the county level. And
Exactly.
my God, it's like depending upon where you live, how many duplicate, quadruplet costs are we enduring? And what are you talking about to people in what you're writing about? What are you saying to say, look, there's another option?
Well, what I'm saying is it's certainly easier said than done, but it is very feasible, which is simply eliminate a lot of the hurdles and obstacles which end up delaying care and adding huge cost to the system. So we simply need to have a real dialogue with people who are actually in the trenches, the people who deliver it, and between all of us, we can get together and say, look, every time I see a patient, this and this happens. Well, there's no need for that. Now, those are hard choices we have to make, and the people who are going to be diminished in that process are making a lot of money. So that we have to, as a society, we have to be willing to do a major about face, and that's the only question. I'm not sure I'm going to see it in my lifetime, but somebody has to talk about it.
You know, you have created a number of different things. This comes from a personal history with you. You and I have this in common. You know, when we are touched personally by, what's the word I want to use? Healthcare, lack of healthcare, illness, disease, call it whatever you want. But when you have been touched personally, it really fires something up inside of you. And I want to ask you, what got fired up inside of you, and what did you create as a result of it?
Well, actually, and I've been fortunate. I mean, I talk about in the beginning of the book, my grandmother had a horrific rheumatoid arthritis.
Yeah.
Part of the reason that I became a hamster.
Mine too.
But is that right? Well, so you know what condition that is. But that is not that motivated me personally to be a healer. But what motivated me to start, for example, Ortho Now, which I talk about in a book, and is a common sense approach to orthopedic care, and then write the book, was simply what I experience every Monday when I see patients in my office, is that every single patient that sees me as a hand surgeon has been through a number of hurdles that make no sense. And that's where I see the waste in the system. And that is what motivated me. It wasn't personal health challenges, thank goodness, in my case, or in those very close to me. It was really my patients, I care, which are like family to me. And I see what they go through. And I say to myself, like in the book, I go, well, why do I need somebody sitting at a desk to provide me an authorization to do that care, to do that surgery? I mean, haven't I been screened enough with my education and my training? Why does somebody sitting at an insurance desk, and that person has a salary and benefits? So why did we institute this in the system? That it makes no sense. And that's what I want to bring attention to with the book.
Yeah, you are bringing attention to it. Before we get too far into this, I want folks to know, first of all, how do they find out about you? How do they find out about the organization? And, you know, congratulations on co-founding the Miami Anatomical Research Center as well. I mean, you are all in on this. And I want folks to know how they can find out about you, the book, and everything else.
Sure, very easy. About 30% of my practice is actually international, even domestic. So I was talking to a lady yesterday from Minnesota with a complex problem, and they find me through my website, which is drbadia.com. So that's drbadia.com. At drbadia.com, there are links then to the other things that I'm doing, including the book. A simple one for the book is drbadiabook.com, or the whole word, which is simply healthcarefromthetrenches.com, and it's on Amazon, as you know. So I'm very easy to reach, and I pride myself on that. I'm very accessible. I answer the emails myself. But I will tell you that there remains still some apathy, because I've done a number of radio shows and podcasts, and it's really rare that somebody reaches out to me and says, hey, I heard this, this makes sense, how can I help, or that's really rare. And yet, we have this issue with what happened with the police, and all of a sudden, people are burning cars, and I'm thinking, well, what's it going to take for the public to care about healthcare?
Yeah, when we have personal crisis, it's personal. But when you have the masses relating to something as we do now, I would bet that people are going to pay more attention to what you're talking about, because there's not a doctor on the planet that I know, or a patient on the planet, that understands why every time I get this special IV treatment I need, somebody has to get authorization. You have to file a form. You have to get the drug, even for Medicare, where they know you're getting it. So this is, I think, what you call cutting out the fat, right?
Yep. I talk. The book is not intended to actually solve the healthcare crisis, but between myself and the 27 contributors, the final chapter, and I don't want to give away the whole thing, but I will tell you that there's a number of very defined initiatives that are not difficult. So one is we're trying to do that now, right? The current administration is interested. We'll see what happens Tuesday, but we need more transparency in healthcare pricing, right? That's one. We need to get rid of all the middlemen, the administrators, and everybody that's actually just bloating the system. And they're not adding a lot of value. I mean, they mean well. I'm not disparaging them, but you don't need that person giving you an authorization, right? So these are the things that we can do, and in the end, we need to involve us, the clinic. And I hate the word provider, right? I put it in quotations on the cover of the book. But let's just use an insurance term. I'm a provider of healthcare. We should be in the conversation to reform healthcare. It shouldn't just be politicians and lobbyists, insurance administrators, and doctors like, say, whether it be Dr. Gupta or Fauci. I mean, these are household figures, but they're really not in the trenches anymore. I mean, we need to get the people who are feeling the pain of delivering the care to say, hey, how can we fix this?
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to achieve.
As a researcher, one of the things that I'm stunned about is the level of inaccuracy. I did an interview with the head of Medicare a number of months ago when they did a stunning report that came out on costs of drugs. So the main question I ask is on their methods. And I said, I love that you did this report. I love that you're talking about this. But can you explain why you included countries that don't have a comparable system? I mean, why would you include Canada when they have a totally different system? And they were so shocked at my questions that they banned that organization from ever interviewing me. So this has got to be more accurate information to the public. You can't come out and say our drug prices are higher and you've done a study and you're using Austria as your baseline. So isn't that part of the conversation to get people real factual information about what their options are?
Oh, it certainly is. The problem is us clinicians are under the gun. We have to work with the industry, with the government, and let's face it, a lot of people are afraid. I don't know why I'm not. I guess
either.
For some reason I'm an entrepreneur. No, I'm not. I'm just not afraid. I don't know why.
I think we know why, because you and I have people in our lives, loved ones, and we've seen them go through what they go through. So, here you and I are talking about this. We're not afraid because this has really hit home for us. And you're seeing it every day with the pain in people's eyes, in their hearts being torn open because they can't navigate through the system.
Yeah. Well, it's a daily thing. As I said, it's fortunately my case is not as personal with family. But it's more so with the patients.
Yeah.
I have many more patients than I do family members. I know that. And it's so, for example, the drug pricing, I bet you most people have never heard of PBMs. In fact, when I was researching the book, I didn't know much about them. So I have all the references in the book. PBMs are pharmacy benefit managers.
Yep.
People have no idea that these companies are really what bloat the prices of medications in this country. And people don't know what they are. Well, we really don't need them. And believe me, I'm a capitalist. I mean, I'm a Cuban immigrant. I fled, communism with my family. So I have no problem with whether it be an insurance company or making a lot of money. But we also have to look at what makes sense. And if somebody's making a lot of money when it's really not needed,
Mhm.
or it's bloating the core product, which is the actual delivery of the healthcare or that medication, then we have a responsibility to society to look under the hood.
Yeah.
Say, wait, what can we do to change? And it's not just passing a law like Obamacare. I mean, that did not lower the costs. We have to face up to that.
We do have to face up to that, but I'll tell you from my personal perspective, I would be bankrupt right now. I would be out. I'd be gone.
It helped 25 million people.
Yeah.
We cannot look a gift horse in the mouth. I get it. But
There's something better. Yeah, we're way beyond that. I want to thank you, Dr. Badia, for today. And I want to say this. You and I come from one place, and I'm reminded of this on a regular basis. Somewhere in the oath, it says do no harm. I would just love for us to get back there, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what we're striving for.
Yeah.
And I can tell you my colleagues feel strongly about this.
Yeah.
We just simply need the dialogue and really the public awareness. So I thank you for helping bring that awareness to your listeners.
Yeah. And if I may say, go NYU. Thank you, Dr. Badia.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hey, everybody, I need you to go out and check this out.